There are moments in life when the noise of the world becomes so loud that people forget to listen to the quiet voice calling their hearts back to truth. There are moments when humanity becomes so distracted by temporary victories, temporary pleasures and temporary fears that it forgets there is a greater reality beyond what the eyes can see. But imagine for a moment that God allowed you to see beyond the curtain. Imagine that He revealed not only what is happening around you, but what is coming next. Imagine seeing the consequences of the choices people are making, the direction the world is moving, and the condition of hearts that have slowly drifted away from what is right. What would you do with that knowledge? Would you ignore it because the truth feels uncomfortable? Would you cover your ears because the warning sounds too heavy? Or would you allow that revelation to transform the way you live, the way you love, and the way you seek God? Because sometimes the greatest mercy is not a blessing we receive. Sometimes the greatest mercy is a warning we are given before it is too late. God does not reveal things to destroy us. He reveals things to awaken us. The greatest danger facing humanity is not only the storms outside, it is the emptiness growing within. It is the heart that becomes comfortable with darkness. It is the soul that slowly forgets the difference between what is right and what is convenient. A person can lose their way one small step at a time. A nation can lose its foundation one compromise at a time. A generation can lose its purpose when it begins chasing everything that shines, but nothing that truly satisfies. The world often celebrates what is temporary and ignores what is eternal. People build their lives on things that can disappear overnight. Wealth, reputation, approval, and success, while neglecting the treasure that cannot be taken away. And this is the warning. What happens next is not simply about events. It is about hearts. A world without compassion becomes cold. A world without truth becomes confused. A world without humility becomes proud. And pride is the beginning of every fall because it convinces people they no longer need guidance, correction, or wisdom. But God is still calling. Even in the middle of uncertainty, His voice remains. Even when people turn away, His invitation remains. Even when the world feels like it is falling apart, there is still hope for those who seek Him. The future is not meant to create hopeless fear. It is meant to create holy urgency. There are people waiting for a sign, waiting for a moment, waiting for something extraordinary to happen before they change. But sometimes the sign is already here. Sometimes the message is already being spoken. Sometimes the answer is not found in looking for a new miracle, but in returning to the truth that was forgotten. God is calling people back to faith, not a faith that exists only in words, but a faith that changes actions. A faith that produces kindness when the world becomes cruel. A faith that produces courage when others choose fear. A faith that produces forgiveness when others choose revenge. Because the greatest preparation for what comes next is not knowing every detail of the future. It is becoming the kind of person who can stand firm when the future arrives. There will always be voices predicting disaster. There will always be people who focus only on darkness. But the message of God has never been only about warning. It has always been about redemption. The same God who warns is the God who restores. The same God who reveals the storm is the God who provides shelter. The same God who shows what happens when people walk away is the God who welcomes them when they return. Maybe what happens next is worse than anyone expects because humanity has forgotten what truly matters. Maybe the greatest crisis is not outside our doors but inside our souls. Maybe the greatest battle is not against another person, but against the pride, bitterness, and selfishness that tries to control our hearts. But there is still time. There is still a chance to choose wisdom over foolishness. There is still a chance to choose love over hatred. There is still a chance to choose God over everything that fades. Do not wait until the storm arrives to search for shelter. Do not wait until the darkness becomes overwhelming to look for the light. The warning has a purpose. The message has a purpose. The awakening has a purpose. God does not reveal what is ahead to create panic. He reveals it to prepare people. He reveals it because He cares. He reveals it because He desires hearts that are ready, lives that are transformed, and souls that remember where true hope comes from. The world may change. Circumstances may shift, people may disappoint, but the foundation that is built on God will remain standing, and when everything temporary falls away, what will matter is not what we collected, what we achieved, or what people thought about us. What will matter is whether we were awake, whether we listened, whether we returned, whether we lived with a heart prepared for what comes next. There are moments in human history when people become so consumed by the present that they forget to look beyond what is visible. They become focused on comfort, achievement, entertainment, and temporary success, while ignoring the deeper questions that reveal the condition of the soul. But there comes a time when the noise fades, distractions lose their power, and the heart begins to recognize that something greater is happening beneath the surface. It is in those moments that God's warning becomes a call to awaken. A warning from God is not meant to create hopelessness. It is not given to spread fear or confusion. It is an expression of divine love, because a loving Father does not remain silent when danger is approaching. A warning is an invitation to change direction before the path leads somewhere destructive. It is a light shining in the darkness, showing people what they may have ignored for too long. The greatest danger is not always the storm that is coming. The greatest danger is the blindness that prevents people from seeing the storm at all. Many people walk through life believing that everything will continue as it always has. They build their plans, chase their desires, and place their trust in things that can disappear in a moment. They forget that everything temporary eventually fades, but the condition of the heart remains important. God often reveals what is hidden because he desires people to return to what truly matters. The world can become so focused on appearances that it forgets the importance of character. People can become more concerned with being accepted than being transformed. They can become more interested in gaining the approval of others than seeking the approval of God. Slowly, without realizing it, they can move away from truth while convincing themselves they are still walking in the right direction. The warning before the storm is not only about external events. It is about the internal condition of humanity. A broken world is often a reflection of broken hearts. When people abandon compassion, humility, honesty, and love, the consequences eventually appear. A society cannot remove truth from its foundation and expect to remain strong forever. A person cannot ignore their soul forever and expect to find lasting peace. The signs of a spiritual storm often begin quietly. They appear when people celebrate what destroys them. They appear when wrong becomes normal and wisdom becomes unwanted. They appear when people have more knowledge but less understanding, more connection but deeper loneliness, more possessions but less gratitude. The heart can become surrounded by everything it wants and still remain empty, but God's warning carries a message of hope. The purpose of revealing danger is not to announce defeat. It is to provide an opportunity for restoration. The same voice that warns is the voice that calls people back. The same hand that points out the problem is the hand that offers healing. God does not expose darkness because he wants people to remain trapped in it. He exposes darkness so people can find the path toward light. Throughout history, people have ignored warnings because they believed they had more time. They delayed change because tomorrow seemed guaranteed. They thought they could continue living without consequences. But time is a gift, not a promise. Every moment is an opportunity to choose what kind of person we will become. The greatest awakening begins when a person stops looking only at the world around them and starts examining the heart within them. Before asking what is wrong with everyone else, they begin asking what needs to change inside themselves. Before pointing at the darkness outside, they allow God to bring light into the hidden places of their own life. The world may continue to shift. Uncertainty may increase. People may experience moments that challenge their faith and test their courage. But those who are anchored in God are not controlled by every change around them. They understand that their foundation cannot be built on temporary things. They know that true security does not come from having control over everything, but from trusting the one who holds everything. The warning before the storm is a moment of mercy. It is God reminding humanity that there is still time to return, still time to seek wisdom, Still time to rebuild what has been broken. The greatest tragedy is not that a storm comes. The greatest tragedy is refusing to prepare when the warning has already been given. The greatest battles that humanity faces are not always visible to the eyes. Many people spend their lives fighting external struggles, trying to overcome circumstances, opponents, and challenges around them, but they forget that the deepest conflicts often begin within the human heart. Before a person can change the world around them, they must first allow God to transform what is happening inside them. The heart is the place where thoughts are formed, decisions are made, and desires are born. It is where faith grows, but it is also where pride, fear, anger, and selfishness can take root. A person may appear successful on the outside while silently losing a battle within. They may have achievements, possessions, and recognition, yet still carry emptiness because the soul was never designed to be satisfied by temporary things. The greatest conflict is not simply between people, it is between the person we are becoming and the person God created us to be. Every day there is a choice between truth and comfort, humility and pride, love and bitterness, surrender and control. These choices may seem small, but over time they shape the direction of a person's life. Pride is one of the most dangerous battles because it hides itself. It convinces people that they do not need correction, that they already understand everything, and that they can build life without guidance. Pride creates distance between the heart and God because it places the self above wisdom. It makes people defend their mistakes instead of learning from them. A heart controlled by pride cannot receive transformation because it refuses to admit the need for change. But a humble heart understands that growth begins with surrender. Humility is not weakness. It is the strength to recognize that there is something greater than ourselves, and that true wisdom comes from seeking God's direction. Fear is another battle that quietly controls many lives. Fear causes people to hesitate, to doubt, and to focus more on what could go wrong than on the one who provides strength. Fear can make a person forget their purpose and become trapped by uncertainty. But faith does not mean that challenges disappear. Faith means trusting God even when the path ahead is unclear. Many people are not defeated by the storms they face. They are defeated by the thoughts they allow to control them during the storm. A fearful heart sees only obstacles. A faithful heart sees an opportunity for God to work. The difference is not always the situation. The difference is the foundation of the heart. Another battle within the heart is the desire to seek approval from the world. People often change themselves to be accepted, admired, or praised. They chase recognition and compare their lives with others, forgetting that their true value does not come from human opinions. The world's approval can change quickly, but God's purpose remains constant. When a person builds their identity on temporary acceptance, they become vulnerable to disappointment. But when their identity is rooted in God, they find a deeper confidence that cannot be destroyed by criticism, rejection, or failure. The heart must also fight against bitterness. Pain is a part of life, and everyone experiences moments of disappointment, betrayal, or loss. But holding on to bitterness allows past wounds to control the present. Forgiveness does not erase what happened, but it releases the heart from being imprisoned by it. God calls people to healing because a wounded heart cannot fully walk in its purpose while carrying the weight of unforgiveness. The battle within is not won through human strength alone. It is won through surrender, prayer, reflection, and a willingness to allow God to reshape the heart. Transformation is a process. It requires patience, honesty, and the courage to confront the areas that need healing. A person who allows God to work within them becomes different from the world around them. They respond with wisdom instead of anger. They show kindness when others show cruelty. They choose faith when circumstances encourage fear. They become a light in places where darkness has become normal. The world often focuses on changing external conditions. But God begins with the heart because a transformed heart creates a transformed life. When the inside changes, the outside begins to reflect that change. The way a person speaks, acts, loves, and treats others becomes evidence of the work happening within. The greatest conflict may happen in silence, unseen by others. But God sees every struggle, every question, every moment of weakness, and every desire to become better. The battle within the heart is not a sign of failure. It is an opportunity for growth, because every heart that is surrendered to God can become a place where His purpose begins to unfold. A world without a strong foundation cannot stand forever. Everything built without truth, wisdom, and righteousness eventually begins to weaken, even if it appears powerful for a moment. Throughout history, civilizations, communities, and individuals have risen and fallen because the foundation beneath them was either strengthened by wisdom or damaged by neglect. When people forget what truly matters, the consequences begin to appear in ways they never expected. The foundation of any society is not only its buildings, technology, or achievements. The true foundation is found in the values that guide the hearts of its people. When honesty becomes less important, when compassion becomes uncommon, when pride replaces humility, and when selfish desires become more valuable than love, the foundation begins to crack. Many people look at the problems around the world and ask why things are changing. They see conflict, division, fear, and uncertainty, but they often look only at the surface. They see the results but ignore the deeper causes. A broken foundation does not appear overnight. It develops slowly through countless choices, attitudes, and decisions that move people further away from what is right. Forgetting God's ways does not always begin with a dramatic rejection of faith. Sometimes it begins with small compromises. It begins when people choose convenience over conviction. It begins when truth becomes something flexible instead of something valuable. It begins when people silence their conscience because listening to it requires change. The danger of losing a foundation is that people may not notice it immediately. A building with a weak foundation can still look beautiful from the outside. A person can appear successful while carrying emptiness within. A society can appear advanced while losing the values that give life meaning. External appearances can hide internal weakness for a season, but eventually what is hidden becomes visible. God's ways are not designed to limit people. They are designed to protect and guide them. His wisdom provides direction in a world filled with confusion. His truth provides stability when everything around people feels uncertain. His love teaches people how to treat one another with dignity and mercy. When humanity removes God from the center, it often tries to replace Him with other things. Some replace Him with wealth, believing that having more will bring peace. Some replace Him with power, believing control will bring security. Some replace Him with human approval, believing acceptance will bring fulfillment. But temporary things cannot carry the weight of the human soul. The heart was created for something greater than possessions, achievements, or recognition. A person can gain everything the world offers and still feel empty if their spirit is disconnected from its creator. True peace does not come from controlling every circumstance. It comes from knowing where the foundation is built. A generation that forgets wisdom begins to repeat the same mistakes. When lessons from the past are ignored, people walk into the same dangers believing they are creating something new. The rejection of truth often leads to confusion because without a clear foundation, every person creates their own definition of right and wrong. But God's invitation remains open. Even when people drift away, there is still a path back. Restoration begins when hearts become willing to listen again. It begins when people recognize that their own understanding has limits and that they need guidance beyond themselves. The return to God is not only about changing words or appearances. It is about transformation from the inside. It is about allowing truth to shape decisions, allowing love to influence actions, and allowing humility to replace pride. A strong foundation does not mean a life without difficulty. Challenges still come. Storms still arrive. Unexpected moments still test faith. But a foundation built on God gives people the strength to remain standing when everything around them begins to shake. The world may continue to change. Opinions may shift. Circumstances may become uncertain. But the principles of truth, love, and righteousness remain powerful because they are not created by trends or human approval. They come from something deeper and more eternal. The greatest danger is not simply that the world changes. Change is a part of life. the greater danger is forgetting the foundation that gives meaning to life. When people lose sight of God's ways, they lose the direction that leads them toward peace, purpose, and hope. Yet even in moments of confusion, God continues to call people back. He continues to rebuild what has been broken. He continues to restore hearts that have wandered. The foundation can be repaired when people are willing to return to truth, because no matter how far humanity moves away, the door to restoration remains open, and the call to rebuild still echoes in the hearts of those willing to listen. A warning from God is not a message designed to create fear. It is not a voice meant to leave people hopeless or overwhelmed. It is a call filled with purpose, a divine invitation to recognize what needs to change and to move toward a better path. When God reveals what is wrong, it is not because he wants to condemn humanity. It is because he desires to restore, heal, and transform hearts that have become distant from him. Many people misunderstand warnings. They see them as signs of punishment, but a warning can actually be an expression of love. A parent warns a child because they care about their future. A guide points out danger because they want someone to arrive safely. In the same way, God reveals the consequences of certain paths because he does not want people to continue walking toward destruction without understanding where those choices lead. The purpose of revelation is transformation. God does not uncover darkness simply to expose failure. He reveals darkness so that light can enter. He shows people the areas of their lives that need healing so they can experience freedom. He reveals the broken places within the heart so they can be restored instead of ignored. The greatest mistake people make is believing that change is unnecessary. They become comfortable with habits, attitudes, and decisions that slowly weaken their connection with God. They convince themselves that everything is fine because the consequences have not appeared yet. But growth begins when a person becomes willing to look honestly at their life and ask what God is trying to teach them. A warning is an opportunity. Every moment of conviction is an opportunity to become wiser. Every moment of reflection is an opportunity to return to the right path. Every moment of discomfort can become the beginning of a deeper transformation. The things that challenge the heart are often the things that reveal what needs to be surrendered. God's purpose is not simply to change behavior. His purpose is to change the heart behind the behavior. A person can change their appearance, their words, and their actions for a moment, but true transformation happens when the inner person is renewed. A transformed heart begins to see life differently. It becomes more sensitive to truth. It becomes more compassionate toward others. It becomes less controlled by pride and more guided by humility. It begins to understand that life is not only about personal success, but about living with meaning and purpose. The world often teaches people to focus on themselves first. It encourages the pursuit of comfort, recognition, and personal gain. But God teaches a different way. He teaches that greatness is found through serving, that strength is found through humility, and that true success is measured by the condition of the soul. The warnings God gives are often meant to redirect people before they lose their way completely. A person standing at a crossroads needs guidance. Without direction, they may choose a path that looks attractive, but leads them away from their purpose. God's wisdom provides the clarity needed to choose what leads to life. Fear asks, what if everything goes wrong? Faith asks, can God still work through this? Fear focuses on the storm. Faith focuses on the one who has power over the storm. This does not mean that challenges disappear. It means that challenges no longer have the final authority over the heart. A person who trusts God can face uncertainty without being destroyed by it. They can experience difficulty without losing hope. They can walk through seasons of change while remaining anchored in faith. The message of transformation is a message of hope because it means the story is not finished. Mistakes do not have to define the future. The past does not have to control the present. A person can turn back, rebuild, and become something greater through God's grace. The world often looks for instant solutions, but spiritual transformation is a process. It requires patience, surrender, and a willingness to allow God to work deeply within. The strongest changes are not always visible immediately. Sometimes the greatest work happens quietly within the heart before it becomes visible through a person's life. God's revelation is not meant to create panic about tomorrow. It is meant to create wisdom for today. It is a reminder that every choice matters, every moment has purpose, and every heart has the ability to be renewed. The future may contain challenges that people cannot predict. Life may bring moments that test faith and courage, but those who allow God to transform them will discover that preparation is not only about knowing what is coming. It is about becoming who they were created to be before that moment arrives. Preparing for what comes next requires more than understanding the changes happening around us. It requires a heart that is strengthened from within. Life is filled with moments that test faith, challenge patience, and reveal what a person truly depends on. When everything feels uncertain, the foundation of a person's life becomes clear. Some foundations collapse under pressure, while others remain strong because they are built on something deeper than temporary circumstances. Many people spend their lives preparing for external things. They prepare for careers, success, achievements, and future plans. They save resources, gain knowledge, and make strategies for the days ahead. But one of the most important preparations is often ignored, preparing the heart and spirit for the moments that cannot be controlled. No one can predict every storm that will come. No one knows every challenge that tomorrow may bring. But God calls people to build their lives on a foundation that remains steady even when circumstances change. A strong faith does not come from having all the answers. It comes from trusting the one who holds the answers. When everything changes, people often discover what they truly believed. In comfortable seasons, it is easy to say that we have faith. But faith becomes visible during difficult seasons when fear rises and uncertainty surrounds us. The person who has built their hope on God finds strength that does not depend on perfect conditions. The world often teaches people to find security in things that can disappear. Wealth can change, relationships can face difficulties, positions can be lost, plans can fail. Everything around us can shift, but God remains constant. This is why true preparation begins with placing trust in what cannot be destroyed. Standing strong does not mean a person never feels afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing faith even when fear exists. A person who trusts God can acknowledge the difficulty of the moment while still believing that God is greater than the difficulty. There will always be voices that create panic. There will always be messages that encourage hopelessness. But a heart connected to God learns to separate fear from truth. It learns that not every storm means the end. Sometimes storms reveal strength that was already being developed. Sometimes difficult seasons become the places where faith grows deeper. Preparing for what comes next also means examining what controls the heart. Are we controlled by anger or guided by love? Are we controlled by pride or shaped by humility? Are we controlled by the opinions of others or grounded in the purpose God has given us? A person who depends completely on the approval of the world will always struggle because the world's opinions constantly change. But a person who understands their identity through God can remain steady even when people misunderstand them or circumstances do not go according to their plans. The future belongs to those who are prepared, but preparation is not only about knowing what may happen. It is about becoming spiritually ready. It is about developing patience when waiting is difficult. It is about choosing kindness when surrounded by negativity. It is about keeping faith when answers do not come immediately. God does not promise that life will always be easy, but He promises that people do not have to walk through difficulties alone. His presence provides strength when human strength feels limited. His wisdom provides direction when the path ahead is unclear. A person who prepares their heart today will be able to face tomorrow with greater confidence. The storms of life may still come, but they will not have the same power over someone who knows where their foundation is built. The world may change faster than people expect. Unexpected events may challenge beliefs and reveal weaknesses. But those who remain connected to God discover that their hope is not based on circumstances. Their hope is based on a relationship with the one who remains faithful through every season. The greatest preparation is not predicting every event. It is becoming a person of faith, wisdom, compassion, and courage. It is allowing God to shape the heart before the challenges arrive. Because when everything around us changes, the person who has been transformed within can continue standing. The future may bring questions, uncertainty, and moments that require strength beyond ourselves. But those who have built their lives on God's foundation can face what comes next with confidence, knowing that they are not held by the strength of the world, but by the strength of the one who guides them through every moment.